All right, so look, there is a really big story coming out about Malika Andrews and other talent at ESPN. And I think this is very important to cover because she has received a ton, a ton of criticisms across various social media platforms, and a lot of it is completely unwarranted. So let's get into it. Most recently, Malika Andrews was granted a restraining order against a 41-year-old, and his name is Ahmed Abubakar, who they called at one point, an overzealous fan, but that is not it at all. And I want to show you why that is not it. This was, I'll pull it up here. This was just some of his messages. Okay. You malignant C word. You work 1 hour today. You didn't even tell me you were going to a blanking wedding. You keep so many blanking secrets from me. As a friend, you treat everyone well except me. This person's crazy. You are great on camera, worth everyone, and also off camera with most friends except me. Why you treat me like blank as a friend? You got me arrested by 2 cops and they said you're blank, and then he puts a Gmail email address saying it's not valid. You lied to the police. You blank, saying you never met me. I hope endometriosis destroys all your genital organs so that you never get a man. She already has one. And you sickening obsession with money, his words. My lawyer is going to sue you and make sure you send my $5,000. I am going to have him prove extortion against you. You scam me like a thief for $5,000. You gold-digging, seeking blank. You keep secrets from me. You lied to me on few instances, and you broke numerous promises by, can't even see what that says, me for money. You are blanked up off camera. Anyone who reads this would think, gosh, I really wish I would never receive that. I wish a loved one would never receive that. I wish people I didn't know would never receive that. Yet that has not been the reaction from many sports fans, unfortunately. To add on to this, she says it became even more disturbing because she learned, let me go back. Her number, her unlisted phone number was dialed, and I'm going to tell you what he said on those phone calls. To add on to this now, Abubakar acted similarly towards Stephen A. Smith and Molly Qerim right here, co-hosts of ESPN First Take. Now, many people know Molly Qerim. She has been around in media for a very long time. Trusted, respected, does a fine job on ESPN First Take, has worked for NFL Network as well. Like, from what I understand, just a good human, okay? Now, let's piggyback off this, all right? Abubakar was arrested in August for allegedly showing up to Qerim's Connecticut home unannounced. People are hearing this, that Malika Andrews put this in her restraining order, and they got mad at Malika. Look at this. Malika Andrews drags Molly Qerim and Stephen A. Smith into her mess. Her mess? It is their mess. They're in it all together. You know why? Because the same person went after all of them. That's why. Yet stuff like this is just such trash, man. Like a total attempt to be the shade room of sports. Even more, Abubakar had recently traveled to ESPN LA's facility looking to make contact with them, including Stephen A. Smith. This caused fear for her safety. It would cause anyone to have a fear for their safety, obviously. She requested that Abubakar stay 100 yards away from her, her fiance, ESPN colleague Dave McMenamin, and Stephen A. Smith. The restraining order was granted by a judge, though the hearing is scheduled for later in October. Let me get to some of those calls and some of the stuff that transpired. ESPN security would put out a statement, due to respondent Abubakar's harassing and threatening course of conduct, Malika Andrews is seriously alarmed and fears for her safety because anyone would. She no longer feels comfortable coming to the ESPN facility where she works and does not feel comfortable interacting with her fans on social media, which is an important aspect of her job. Very much so. George Fong, who you see right here, is head of security at ESPN. He would go on to tell the Washington Post, Abubakar would frequently post threatening and harassing messages towards those three ESPN employees, Qerim, Andrews, Smith, tracking their location, noting that he was seeking their personal contact information, stating he was trying to meet them in person. Look, mental health is a serious problem in this country. We can all agree to that. And hand in hand, a lot of the mental health facilities being shut down or that Republicans vote against, you can't say there's a mental health crisis and then not fund it. But if this were to happen to anybody, they would break. They would break. And yet, these three have not. Abubakar made contact with Malika, and she hung up. She alerted the head of security, Fong, who demanded Abubakar cease all conduct and contact with her, according to court docs. Abubakar would agree, but later in the day, he directed at least 14 messages to Malika Andrews on Twitter, including some in which he admitted to calling her. So after saying, I will not contact her, he did. Here's one of the tweets. Somehow it appears there's a barrier ESPN NBA media sports journalists create with fans, as when I called to let you know that you were willing to cut calls short before I reminded you about fact to stop bringing up negative old news, he wrote in a tweet, appearing to reference Brandon Miller's connection to an Alabama murder case that Malika Andrews mentioned on draft day when the Charlotte Hornets selected him, which, by the way, everyone in sports media has talked about. It is not just Malika Andrews. And yet, when we hear all of this news, I think what disgusts me the most is, you see the headline here? The one name that pops out is that one. Right there. Dave McMenamin. If you don't know, Dave McMenamin, veteran ESPN reporter, writer. No one cared that Malika Andrews was threatened. No one cared that this person showed up to Molly Qerim's home unannounced in Connecticut. It was that. And then you see stuff like this. Malika Andrews always knew it was something off about you because she's dating Dave McMenamin. Well, engaged. Because she's engaged to Dave McMenamin. That's pathetic. Brittany Daniel would tweet this, which I completely agree with. Let's see if I can make it bigger here. The way NBA Twitter talks about Malika Andrews, this was sadly bound to happen. I agree. Hopefully she and Molly Qerim and Stephen A. Smith, who also had encounters with this person, remain safe. If you go to YouTube, okay, and you search Malika Andrews, you see crap like this over and over again. Sports fans, dudes, crapping on her appearance, crapping on her coverage. Why? Because she reports the news as it happens to team personnel, to coaches, to players. Positive or negative. Guess what? We cannot continue being the kiss asses in media. There needs to be some sense of journalistic integrity, the ability to bring up these things when they come about, to understand who this person is that an entire franchise, a billion-dollar entity, is aligning with. Yet these are the cuts, and I do not recommend you watch this, but these are the cuts that we see and the clips that are posted to defame and crush Malika Andrews. I don't get it. I can understand if you're a huge fan, if you are a loyalist of a team or a player, and you have, like, you know, Brandon Miller 24/7 fan, whatever, in your bio. I get it. You like him. There's also questions that should be raised. Now, some of you will say, well, there's a time and place for everything. When? If it's not when it happens, then when is it? If it's not on draft day, because a team, and even, I've been told this, I'll get to this in a second, but even if a team drafts that person, the fans should know. And you probably say, well, I do know. Not everyone is you. I was told when I was in school and on the come up, out of breaks, give an update to the game that's going on. Not everyone is watching. Or pretend like someone just started watching. On top of this, I was also told not everybody is going to be a hardcore statistician. People just don't know these things. So if you are one of those people that is crushing Malika Andrews and not seeing the bigger picture, grow up.